The New Kids on the Block are an iconic boy band, and although helping pave the way for acts like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, they aren't necessarily celebrated the same culturally, and I think there's many different variables that go into that, including the time period in which they came up, the lack of a solo superstar, which could have served as a vessel for introduction to a lot of people, and the lack of a late career hit. Nonetheless, in many ways, the New Kids on the Block helped define the blockbuster teen boy bands that were prevalent throughout the 90s and early thousands, and they were a phenomenon in their own right. The group members consist of Joey McIntyre, Donnie Wahlberg, Danny Wood, and brothers Jonathan and Jordan Knight. The New Kids on the Block were created to be the white equivalent of legendary group New Edition. Maurice Starr, the man who discovered New Edition, wanted to put together a white group after his business relationship with New Edition was severed. Donnie Wahlberg, who's the brother of Mark Wahlberg, was the first member and rapper of the group. He eventually recruited the other members that he knew from school. There was another member that dropped out before a young Joey McIntyre joined the group. Joey was sought after the group and managers went on a quest for a singer that had the same youthful appeal as a young Michael Jackson. The New Kids on the Block grew up in a very black and integrated neighborhood, so they were exposed to and grew up with a lot of R&B and soul music, and looked up to acts like New Edition, who also came from Boston. Originally going by the name Nanook, when they signed a record deal they were asked to change the name and settled with New Kids on the Block. The beginning of their career, however, was not smooth sailing. They were initially actually marketed to appeal to black audiences. In fact, they were even signed to the black division of Columbia Records. Maurice Starr really wanted them to be a young burgeoning R&B act, and he really pushed them in that direction, but they didn't resonate with black audiences at that point in time. Although later they would achieve some moderate success on the R&B charts. Their first album was extreme bubblegum pop, and it flopped significantly, so much so that they were almost dropped by the label. But Maurice Starr convinced the label to allow them to record another album. It wasn't until they had their breakthrough with their later work that their debut album began to sell after it was repurposed. But before that would occur, the Kids on the Block were not happy with the lack of input on their first album and the extremities of the bubblegum pop sound, so they took matters into their own hands and helped guide the direction of their follow-up album, Hangin' Tough. The first single from the album, titled Please Don't Go Girl, initially got as much reception as their first album, little to none. It seemed that they were destined to be a group that never hit it big, until a pop radio station by chance played their song, which gave them the momentum they needed to reel in listeners. It soon became widely popular, and their first top 10 hit in the States. Songs such as You Got It, The Right Stuff caught the attention of MTV, and they hit number 1 for the first time with I'll Be Loving You Forever. They were propelled into the stratosphere. They became so popular that the tour they went on as an opening act for teen pop star Tiffany was reversed so that the New Kids on the Block were the headlining acts. 1988's Hangin' Tough quickly cemented them as the New Kids on the Pop Block, eventually selling over 10 million copies. They followed their success with Step by Step in 1990, their biggest hit worldwide and commercially, with the album of the same name selling over 3 million copies. They embarked on the Magic Summer Tour, which became one of the highest grossing tours of the decade. At this point in their career, merchandise became a part of their brand. They had lunchboxes, dolls, cards, plates, comics, a TV show, and practically any other item that's sellable. The members were not exactly happy with the merchandise. They felt it became too much and even bigger than them at one point. They also had one of the biggest fan clubs in the world. They topped the Forbes list, beating out acts like Michael Jackson and Madonna. This level of exposure, especially with the various merchandise, is always met with some type of resistance. And they were teen pop acts, so it was already cool to hate on them, and they were getting a lot of backlash. Funnily enough, the Milli Vanilli scandal happened right around the time of the New Kids on the Block's dominance, which gave people who already didn't like dance pop acts, and particularly teen pop acts like Kids on the Block, more ammunition and reasons to dismiss them. The Milli Vanilli scandal didn't only affect the duo at hand, but put into question many other acts who made similar frothy pop. Paula Abdul is also someone who got swept away in the cultural effect of Milli Vanilli, and the New Kids on the Block were no different. They got accused of lip syncing and using a backing track live.
What do you think about the allegations?
Well, I've seen him in concert 8 times in the last year, and I do not think that it's true.
Yeah.
Because, you can hear occasional bad notes.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing is just a lot of people that are a little upset about maybe not working for him anymore. Not making some of the money.
Do you think lip syncing is bad? Like, I always wondered, if you found out that one of your favorite groups lip sync, I don't know what it is, would you be mad?
Well, it really depends. The new kids on the block are dance-oriented, too. And a lot of bands, a lot of solo people, too, use backup tapes occasionally, use a little bit of stuff because they have to do the dance, too.
What do you think about this whole controversy?
Well, I think with all the work that they have to do that's involved in a lot of these shows, they do get very tired. And if they have to lip sync, so be it.
A producer of their album, Gregory McPherson, alleged that Maurice Starr, their manager and producer, sang vocals and the group lip-synced during live performances. The group immediately fought back against the allegations, doing a live televised performance to showcase that they did in fact sing.
Exactly what is the lawsuit about? Who is it against? Is it you? Is it them?
Actually, it's probably I think he's using them to try to get to me, to try to get to some money. I believe that's really what it is, because the guys they're singing 100% tonight, and no one from our organization owed him any money. So I think it's just like, a lot of people sometimes take pop shots at people once they become superstars and stuff. So
I've read interviews that you've done, and you say sometimes they've used background stuff, but all their leads, I know on this show, all their leads have always been live.
Always been live, all their leads.
But all the lead vocals on their albums are done by New Kids.
Have always been done by them.
I had first heard about it when my manager came to my room in the morning. Dick Scott came to the room, and he said, "Yeah, you heard about so-and-so. He's supposedly suing Maurice and said you guys didn't sing." And I laughed. I out and out laughed. Me and Dick both laughed, because we figured it was just we've known the dude, you know what I'm saying? He worked with us for a while. In fact, he was on the show with us before here, and we know how he is, you know what I'm saying? It's not the first time he's tried to do something like that. And so really, we just laughed it off. Everybody was just laughing off until we found out that the worldwide media had given this dude instant credibility and put him on the headlines of all the papers, and basically just took this guy out of nowhere and said, "Oh, he says, this guy, supposedly the New Kids producer," which everyone knows Maurice Starr is our producer. We've been criticized.
What is this guy?
He was our musical director for about 4 months.
And why is he no longer here?
It's a long story.
Whack.
It's not. Yeah.
We basically just let him go. He'll claim that he wasn't fired, but we did let him go.
Yeah, he wasn't.
If we wanted him to be here, he'd be here. So we didn't say you're fired, but we said.
Yeah, there's a lady over there that I talked to, and she said something very interesting. She said she's been to a lot of concerts, and she's heard some bad notes, so she thinks it's live. No, you're being honest, because they're human. Luther Vandross hits a bad note every now and then. He's a human being. Yeah, rarely. But
I'm saying we've never claimed to be great singers. You know what I'm saying, and our fans know that. And I don't think anybody has ever considered us to be great singers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you've read any record review for the last 3 years, it says New Kids can't sing. They sing lousy on the records. They're not good singers. They barely carry the tunes. So it makes it all the more ridiculous why everyone would all of a sudden believe that a really, really, really great singer who's been singing for over 20 years, Maurice Starr, could be the voice on those records. You know what I'm saying? We've never claimed to be great singers, but we carry our own weight and we do what we got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All the allegations that this guy McPherson made about our stuff was all from the Hangin' Tough album, and he said that, we only sang 20% of it, which, is basically just nonsense, you know what I'm saying?
He wasn't even there. He wasn't
exactly.
even there
He's
when
never
we recorded it.
In fact, he's never cut any vocals I know of me, or I don't know if anyone else in the group. I don't think he's ever been in the studio with us to record vocals at all, so I don't even know where he's coming from. You know what I'm saying?
They did, however, admit to singing with a backing track, which is industry standard.
pop icons have lip synced and used tapes. I mean,
Bigger than
big
us.
names, huge names. And it's like, you know, it's an MTV age where people want to see people dance and stuff. And you can't always sing great when you got these big dance routines and stuff. So
That's the beauty of playing live. You know what I mean? You know, if people use tracks or tapes or sequences, whatever, that's fine. You know, we've used it before. We're not ashamed to say that we've used it before, but we feel, you know, we spend a lot of time and put a lot of hours into having to not use them and to having the freedom to really, you know, explore on stage and really be a live group. And, you know, we're very proud of that. And, you know, we're not going to let nobody take that away from us.
In 1992, New Kids filed a defamation suit against McPherson, saying that his claims about the group were false and defamatory and were made to injure the New Kids for McPherson's private gain. Later in 1992, Greg McPherson retracted his claims, dropped his $21 million lawsuit against the group's producer Maurice Starr, and released a statement saying, "The allegations I made regarding New Kids on the Block lip-syncing were untrue. They did sing lead on their vocals." Greg was after the money, Joey said. "We weren't surprised that Greg did what he did. What surprised us was that people believed him. We were stunned at how the media just took the story and ran with it." Added Knight, "But what really made us mad was that when the truth finally came out, it barely got reported. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon with all the negative stuff about how he didn't sing, but nobody did any stories saying the guy who spread all these lies admitted he was a fraud. Nobody printed any big headlines like the New Kids really do sing. But hey, that's the way the media works. It's not about truth, it's about controversy." The New Kids on the Block had a drastic decline in popularity. Not solely because of the backlash, but it played a major part. Some group members took the backlash better than others.
Billy Idol makes a lot of jokes about us. To me, I just don't understand why a 40-year-old man would spend so much energy on us. Yeah, what's up with that? You didn't even see the show. Step by Step was a failure. It sold 5 million copies. What kind of failure is that?
The New Kids broke away from Maurice Starr and changed their group name to the group's initials to push forward a more mature image, but they would have a nearly 4-year gap between albums. They attempted to keep up with times, but fell behind. They attempted to incorporate more New Jack Swing and grown-up elements in their music, but it was clear they were directionless. 1994's Face the Music flopped hard. Plus, there was becoming a lot of resistance towards frothy pop acts, due to the rise of grunge and the likes of Nirvana. Their fanbase had also developed different interests. In a matter of time, the New Kids on the Block's prime had sailed. They were doing small venues, but a few years back they were doing arenas and stadiums. Jonathan Knight left the group as he had a hard time dealing with anxiety. Eventually the group disbanded and became Family Man. They have reunited since then, and they still perform together practically every year. They're always doing interviews. They have performed with groups like New Edition, who they were inspired by, and went on to tour with the Backstreet Boys, New Kids on the Backstreet. They also went on to tour with Salt and Peppa and En Vogue, and have been supplying people with a lot of nostalgia trips. They are still very active and have a very loyal following. It's interesting that the last album they released in the 90s was in 1994, but by the end of the 90s decade, teen pop had reached the pinnacle of pop culture. And I think there's a few different explanations as to why the New Kids on the Block got pushed out of their prime, and why they didn't have the same benefits as teen pop acts of the 90s. Of course, there were a few prominent teen pop or R&B acts, like Tiffany, New Edition, and Debbie Gibson, but teen pop was not the hot commodity that it became in the late 90s, and they came up in a time where dance pop acts were not taken as seriously as rock acts. Now, did the New Kids on the Block make the best music? No, but their demographic was young teenage girls, and of course things widely loved by young girls tend to get a lot of hate from people who aren't of the demographic. The Kids on the Block being overexposed with the merchandise only further exasperated people's dislike of them. And the Milli Vanilli and lip-syncing scandal was just the icing on top. It gave people what they felt was a valid reason to finally rid of them. And a lot of frothy pop acts were already dismissed by critics, but the Milli Vanilli scandal gave more credence to why critics felt they shouldn't be popular. 90s teen pop stars were not without their backlash. However, they were given more opportunities and platforms than the acts that came before them. When New Kids on the Block were on the rise, there wasn't a wide array of platforms dedicated specifically to younger acts, like there was in the 90s with shows like Total Request Live, that put a massive spotlight and coverage on younger acts. So the 90s teen pop stars at least had a direct platform that catered to the audience they captured, and in turn it increased their exposure and commercial visibility. Nonetheless, the new kids are still spinning the block and reaping the benefits of their heyday.